everybody. Hey, we're going to get started here. Sorry we're a little bit late, but welcome. We got a good crowd here. What I wanted to do to begin with was out front. We were asking people if they had renewed their memberships, and we have a membership database like Bill has in his hand, and we're missing one of these copies. We were thinking maybe just someone picked it up by mistake, thinking it was a handout. But if anybody has that database, we'd really like to get that back. Is that it? All right, so that's a little bit of housekeeping. Thank you for coming. We got a great program tonight. Scott Wagner's here. He's going to talk about how regulations by the federal government and the state government are choking PA business. And then we'll also have Ted Waga here speaking on his candidacy for the 19th Congressional District. Before we start everything, I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you'd stand and face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Very appropriate. And now I'd like to introduce Jack Silcox. He's going to give the prayer for the evening to start the meeting. Jack Silcox.
First time I've been up here. Might not be the last. Dear Lord, we pray for world peace, and we pray for our country, and we pray for the control of the country by the Constitution that was written, and that we don't stray too far from it. We pray for our efforts to bring us back into constitutional law, and we pray for more and more education on how we got where we are and a view as to where we're going. Bless us this evening, Lord, and guide our steps. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
A couple things coming up here, events that are coming up. Obviously, on Tuesday is election, so we want everybody to go out and vote. We do have a couple candidates here that are running on the ballot on Tuesday, and I'll be introducing them when it comes their time. So get out and help. If you can help at the polls, if you know anybody that's running locally, we certainly encourage that. And December 1st, we have our membership-only meeting. And it's the only time we've ever had a membership-only meeting. And some of the reason for this, or one reason for this, is because we want to hear what you think about what's going on with the group and the direction of the group. We also are going to have about a 10 to 15-minute tutorial on our new website. We want to have everything brought through the website, including emails and blogs and things of that nature. And we want it to be a one-stop shop. Now, to come to the membership meeting, you have to be current in your dues. Dues are $20 for an individual and $35 for a family, and that's a yearly dues. We had Beth and Andrew Tome out front getting people up to date. Now, we've been lax in that over the summer because the woman who was running our database, she did not want to do that anymore. But we're getting a handle on that. So before the meeting or after the meeting tonight, if you want to get current on your dues, you can. I believe that we have a PayPal link on our site where you can pay by PayPal. And before the meeting, we'll have people collecting dues also. So don't miss that. We're going to try and do that more than once a year, but it's for you, and this group is for you, and we want to hear what you're thinking and what kind of direction you want to go in it. The other thing is that we have a state representative by the name of Scott Perry in northern York County that is trying to push some bills through. Their work and labor-related, prevailing wage and things like that. He needs our help, and we need to get some kind of lobbying push to go up to Harrisburg to help him out. In the next couple of weeks, we'll be sending out emails discussing what these individual bills are and what you can do to help. So we would like any help you can provide us for that. The next thing is that on your, did everyone get an agenda? If you didn't get an agenda, there's extra agendas over at the table. On the back of the agenda, we have the 1-5 CAV Single Soldier Project. And the 1-5 CAV is putting together welcome home baskets for our single soldiers who will be coming home and returning to their barracks. Our goal is to place a basket in each of the barracks rooms. In order for this project to be successful, we need your help. We're looking for volunteers to sponsor a single soldier basket. A $35 contribution will sponsor a single soldier basket and help ensure that our returning soldiers' immediate basic needs are met. This is very important to welcome home the soldiers who put their lives on the line and basically put their lives on hold for the sake of this country. Now, what we're going to do, any donations taken tonight will go to the 1-5 CAV Single Soldier Project. So I'm going to start this around, and whatever you contribute, that'd be great, and we appreciate it. And then at the end, we'll total up the money and let you know how much money we raised for this project. Here you go, Bill. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is we're going to have district judge candidate Jake Coy from District 19203 come up, but unfortunately he's not here right now. He is a JV football coach for West York, and obviously the game's not over yet because he's not here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce Bill Kirk. Bill Kirk. Bill Kirk is one of 3 gentlemen that are on the ballot for the York Suburban School District School Board, and he'd like to say a couple things. Bill.
Thank you, Scott. Actually, Scott told me to do something which I already neglected to do, so I'll do that right now. At the end of the day, as Scott mentioned, what we're really looking for is some support on Tuesday at the polls. We're, again, in the York Suburban District. I'll go back up there in a second. And so I'm going to pass this around. I understand it's going to be a beautiful day on Tuesday in the mid-60s. If nobody has anything better to do, would like to help us out at the polls on Tuesday. If you can, go ahead if you can, just pass that along. Good evening. I appreciate the time to talk to you, albeit for 5 or 10 minutes. My name is Bill Kirk, and I'm in the York Suburban School District. And just out of curiosity, by a show of hands, are there many people here from York Suburban, if any? Okay, we got a few people. Not unlike the other districts in York County, certainly Dallas Town Central and the rest, we've seen some explosive growth in our taxes like everyone else has. In the last 4 years, the taxes have gone up probably close to 3 times the rate of inflation. The spending that's been going on at the school board level is just out of sight. Has nothing to do with the economic reality that's going on in our district. And unfortunately, with all this spending, the performance of the kids has not improved. As a matter of fact, the SAT scores this past year were down across the board, including about a 47-point drop just in mathematics. So you'd like to think that if you're spending all this money, it's helping to improve education. It's not. We've spent a whole lot of money refurbishing buildings, putting AstroTurf fields down, things that don't help the students. Similar things have happened in Dallastown with their middle school. We did the Yorkshire project, cost between that and what happened at Valley View, cost about $25 million. They probably could have done the same thing if needed for about half of that. And now we probably have one facility that can be done away with. We could close one school. We'll still have 3 other K through 5 schools that could house all the students. So we have a bunch of excess capacity that's not needed. Tax delinquencies in our district have grown to 650,000 just last year, which is 4 times what it was in 2010. We've got 20 properties up for tax upset sale. It's not working. We've had a lot of long-term citizens in the district that have spent their whole lives paying for their homes, paying their taxes, paying their mortgages, and now could lose their homes because they just can't afford the increasing tax level. What I have done personally is I've joined forces with a couple of other individuals, Joel Sears and Roger Miller. Roger happens to be an incumbent. Unfortunately, he's the only conservative on the board, and there was a lot of 8-to-1 votes over the past 4 years, Roger, as he calls himself, being the lone wolf. And we need some support from some conservative voices. So the 3 of us have been campaigning. We fortunately got through the primaries and are still on the Republican ballot. And there's now 8 people left that'll be running on Tuesday for 5 positions. And we really feel we got a great chance to unseat 2 very liberal people on the board that have been there for 16 years. And it would be a huge benefit to the district if we can pull that off. It won't be easy, but we're working real hard. We've sent out some flyers, mailers, to everyone in the district explaining our position, and we've done a whole lot of other types of campaigning. But we really feel if we can get some help at the polls and keep the message coming, we could have a pretty good result come November 8th. So, we think the status quo is unsustainable. Certainly, unfortunately, we seem to be the only district, and I think I've read this, York Suburban is the only district that has the possibility of reseating the same 5 people that are running. In every other district, some of the incumbents have already been done away with in the primary. York Suburban, all 5 incumbents are still on the ballot. So we really need some help. There's a whole lot of people fighting to keep the incumbents in place. Don't ask me why, I couldn't tell you. Sometimes you think logical thinking doesn't go well. There's a lot of name recognition that helps these 16-year veterans stay on, and we really need to help push to get them replaced. So again, Bill Kirk, Joel Sears, Roger Miller, hopefully you've seen our signs around. We haven't been shy in putting them up. Smarter spending, better education, lower taxes. That's our mantra as we're going forward. So I don't know if anybody has any questions about our campaign or what we're looking for, but again, we're passing around that pad. If anybody is available, we certainly could use help at the polls, and I appreciate your time. Yes, sir. If it's just teachers, our average class size is about 17 pupils per teacher. If you talk about employees, it's less than 10. So for every employee, there's less than 10 students for every employee. And that includes more than teachers, obviously administration and other staff. But that's certainly part of the reason why the cost per student is about $16,000. It's extraordinary. And as far as you might have heard, it's been very contentious. We put out there our position that we would be looking to close one of the elementary schools. We currently have 4. When they were building the Yorkshire School, they comfortably housed everybody in the 3 remaining schools. Then when they refurbished Valley View just last year, those kids were moved and again housed in the 3 remaining schools. So how they can say they can't do it with 3 schools is beyond me. They've done it in the last 2 out of 3 years. And then if you right-size the classes, right now our average class size at those grades is about 13, 14 students. If you make them about 20 or 21, you save another 6 classrooms. So if they thought they were tight before, I can save them an average of 2 additional classrooms per school of the 3 schools. So there is plenty of room. They fight that there isn't. The reason they're fighting that there isn't is because it would make them look bad why they invested $25 million to build and refurbish schools that aren't needed. Is that sort of like the Tonys where they're trying to... Anyway, I've probably taken my 10 minutes. I appreciate your time and would look forward to your support. Thanks very much.
Bill, I got to personally thank you for running for school board. We had a school board project here that we ran for months before the primaries, and you guys are like the lone men standing. It's a thankless job. It's a low-paying job, which means it's not paying anything, and you get it from both sides. You get it from people who have kids in school, and you get people who don't have kids in school. So any help that you can give Bill and Joel and Roger is appreciated. I myself, I'm a York County Republican committee man, and I'm in Warrington Township. I'm going to go vote in Warrington Township, and I'm going to come to York Suburban and help them out at the polls because they're the type of people that we need to get elected to these school boards because the spending is out of control. And the reason why people like Ellen Fryrick get elected and get elected and get elected is because they know the people. This is how York County is. If people know your name, that's who they're going to vote for. Just our 19th congressional district congressman. It's just the same thing with that. They know who he is. They vote for. But any help is much appreciated for them, because we need people like that elected. And that's one of our tenets to the group, is to educate, or organize, educate, and campaign. So thank you, Bill, for your efforts. Appreciate it. Jay Coy's not here yet. We had some people coming in late to the meeting. The donation jar is back by the merchandise table, and if you can donate anything for the 1-5 Cav single soldier project, that would be much appreciated. Now, we get to give Scott Wagner 10 more minutes to speak. So Scott Wagner, President of Penn Waste, has a lot to say about federal and state regulations. Scott Wagner has been a great friend of the York 912 Patriots. He's a man who's put himself out there in York County, and we very much appreciate it. So I'll cede the floor to Scott at this moment.
I think I'm on the air. Good, good. Well, good evening, and thank you for coming out tonight. And it's Thursday, so happy Thursday. But it was a gorgeous, gorgeous day. So thank you for coming out tonight, and I am thankful to have the opportunity to present this evening. I actually presented back in July of 2010, and so I went back through my slide presentation. And if I could step away, I think everybody can hear me back there. I went through my slide presentation from July of 2010, and actually I took a word out of the opening slide, and my slide about 16 months ago was Pennsylvania and the anti-business climate. So I took the word anti out because I'm hopeful that things are going to change, but I have a friend, a very successful friend in business, who always tells me that hope is not a strategy. So, what I'm doing is I'm continuing to present to groups, and I'm spending a lot of time in Harrisburg, and I've been actually spent Wednesday afternoon with 2 staffers from Senator Toomey's office at a business in Lancaster that is owned by a friend of mine, and we actually 2 weeks ago had 2 of Senator Toomey's staff from Harrisburg at the Mack truck plant in Allentown to talk about EPA regulations and emission. But anyway, Penn Waste was founded in 2000. We run approximately 100 vehicles, and we have about, I think about a little under 320 employees today. So, Amanda, if you could just flip through. But anyway, basically, we collect waste and recyclables throughout South Central Pennsylvania. We collect in a 4-county area: York, Dauphin, Cumberland, and Lancaster counties. And we pick up waste, and we deliver the waste either to the Harrisburg incinerator or the Lancaster Resource Recovery Facility and the York Resource Recovery Facility. And it's sort of surprising. Everybody's been reading about Harrisburg and the Harrisburg incinerator. Actually, the Harrisburg incinerator is also a resource recovery facility. It generates steam for the city of Harrisburg. York and Lancaster incinerators both, well, they're really resource recovery facilities, generate steam and then power, and both facilities sell electric back to the local power companies. So, in South Central Pennsylvania, we service about 150,000 homes in 65 municipal contracts, and we service about in the neighborhood of 3,500 commercial customers in our 4-county area. So, Amanda, we're going to talk a little bit about, this is sort of staggering. We're going to pass through this real quickly, but I'm going to show you, actually there's 6 pages. There are 10 items per page of regulation that our company, Penn Waste, deals with on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, semi-annual, or annual basis. And, I'm only one business in South Central Pennsylvania, and there are many, many businesses. I could, driving up 74 or Route 30, you pass businesses that have been in this community for a long, long period of time. And I can tell you, I'll just take an example. If I were to drive out Route 30, you have the Apple car dealerships, and the Apple car dealerships operate a body shop, and they have repair facilities. They have regulations that they deal with. For example, if you continue out, Route 30, and you get closer, to 83, and you have manufacturing facilities, they have a lot of regulation that they have to comply with, and it would be regulation in addition to regulation that we deal with. So, but just specific to Penn Waste, we have 6 pages of regulation whether it's again, it could be local, it could be state, it could be township, it could be federal. So, you know, it's pretty amazing when you think about the regulation that's required to operate a business today. So, you know, we're going to flip through and, you know, we're going to go to the last page, and it's 60 items. And we know that there are more items, but these are 60 absolutely identifiable items that we deal with in our business every day. This past summer, I spent some time really calculating how much, you know, time that we spend within our company. We spend probably in the neighborhood of 10,000 hours of personnel hours to comply with all these regulations. And you know, if you look at a 40-hour week, you know, times 52, it's 2,080 hours. So really, if it almost equates to 5 people are spending their time throughout the whole year dealing with regulation within our company. I mean, we have some supervisors that maybe spend 2 or 3 hours a week. We have some people that maybe spend an hour a day. But at the end of the day, you think about 10,000 hours of labor, whether it's, you know, men and women within our company, helping our company to stay in compliance. It's pretty staggering. And if you multiply that over all the businesses in York County and all the businesses in, you know, Cumberland, Dauphin, and then you start multiplying them by the companies in the state of Pennsylvania, it's enormous how much you spend on regulation. What's even more amazing, we're going to go to the next slide. When I was here 16 months ago, today in our company, and let me back up because I jumped ahead of myself. Today in our company, we use 13 attorneys. That's staggering. It's amazing. And you know, when you have issues, you use special attorneys that have you know, special expertise in those different areas. But you know, we use I think 5 attorneys at Stock and Leader. It could be anywhere from collections, practices, ordinance, competition, you know, business issues within our business, environmental. We built an office building, you know, on North George Street, and we completed that building 2 years ago. I actually bought the land in 2002. It took us 6 years to get wetlands approvals. And we went to the Army Corps of Engineers when we started the project. And they said, well, it's too large for us and it's not our jurisdiction. You should go to DEP. So we went to DEP, and DEP said, we don't handle this. It's not our jurisdiction. So a week later, we had some fill ground put on the property. We were fined within 5 days because we were dumping. We found out who the agency was. It was the Army Corps of Engineers. But you know, it's the kind of stuff that just becomes frustrating. And when you look at how long projects take, it's staggering with the amount of regulation. And I'm going to get specific on number 6, and that's a lady from a law firm in Lancaster. Law firm is Stevens and Lee, Susan Friedman. She handles labor law, and labor law is specific to union activity. And so we've done a lot of anti-union education within our company. You know, my goal is to be a non-union company as long as I'm alive and I'm operating the company. Thank you. I believe, you know, Bill, you represented, and you know, you proudly wear your Strine printing shirt. I believe if you treat people well and you treat them with respect and you care for them as an employer, there's never ever going to be a need for a union. And you know, I'm proud to say that. And we have an incredible team of people that work for our company. And without people, trucks don't run, a lot of things don't happen. But you know, and then we go down to number 11, and number 11 is Ann Zerby, and she's with the CGA law firm, and you know, her specialty is employment law, and it would be making sure that we're in compliance. You know, we have you know, sexual harassment policies within our company. You know, we have you know, termination issues. We have hire issues. So, you know, that's very different than using a labor law attorney. But as you see, we use 13 attorneys, and it's pretty amazing. And I'm not just one business operator out there. It would apply to a lot of different businesses out there. But this is pretty amazing, and it's the cost of doing business. But I think every day, 13 attorneys, it's staggering. And another one would be number 8 on the list is a gentleman by the name of John Pyatt. He's a transportation attorney. he helps us stay in compliance with our fleet. If we have an accident, he helps us, with the accident investigation and everything involved with operating vehicles on the road today. So that's a big list, and I don't know about you, but I'm amazed when I see this list. So let's go to the next slide. And I had shown this slide at the presentation I did about 16 months ago, and I believe there's a pipeline going to Harrisburg and there's one going to Washington. And I participate personally. We participate at Penn Waste, and all of you in this audience participate personally. And if you own a business, you participate. But there's a large amount of tax dollars flowing to both places. And I think it's time that we ask questions, and we hold the people that are in elected offices responsible, and we ask questions like, where are our tax dollars going? Where are they really working? And I think it's important that we ask questions. So I'm going to go to the next slide, and I want to tell you a little something interesting about this slide. This is a front load truck, and for those, hopefully everybody can see it, but the total cost of this truck is $245,000. Now, if you start backing out the numbers, $37,000 of the purchase of this truck of the 245 was for federal excise tax and sales tax, and then when you go up to the base cost, it's $208,000. We purchased 4 of these trucks this year, so if you just let's round the $37,000 off to $40,000, and you take 40 times 4 of these trucks, that's $160,000 for these trucks. And we have actually we have a great bank. We have M&T, and I can tell you these trucks are 100% financed. So, but we are upgrading equipment. But when you look at the tax numbers, they're staggering numbers. Now I'm going to show you something that's even more amazing. And I spent a lot of time over the last year putting these numbers together. And as I share them with people in Harrisburg, they look at it and say, well, we've never seen this before. This is pretty amazing. But there's something that you're going to find interesting. As a senator from Harrisburg or from Lancaster came down to visit me, he saw this and he said, wow, this is wild. This truck I'm talking about that I just flashed the picture up is truck 214. That's a 2012 truck. And next to truck 214 is truck 203, which was a 2002 truck that was purchased 10 years ago. The base cost of that truck, the body and the chassis, was $149,000. The base cost this time when we purchased the truck was $208,000. So the truck has gone up approximately $60,000 over a 10-year period. That's 39.7%. I'm going to round it off, that's 40%. Now, when you factor taxes, you factor the taxes on the base cost of the truck. So as the base cost of the truck has gone up 40%, so have the taxes. How many of you out there that own businesses have a built-in escalator every year in your business? And I don't think anybody will raise their hands. But what this demonstrates on this spreadsheet is that the federal excise tax and the state tax have gone up 40% also over a 10-year period. That's pretty staggering. Now, all of you in this room arrived here tonight with a car or a truck. And if you look back at what you paid for a car or truck 10 years ago and what you pay for a car or truck today, it's gone up. It hasn't gone down, and it definitely hasn't stayed the same. So, you maybe purchased 10 years ago, you purchased a pickup truck for, $24,000. 10 years later, that truck might be $30,000. So you paid more in sales tax for that vehicle this year than you did 10 years ago. So, again, if I go back to the slide, and I'm not doing that, but if I went back to the slide showing the pipeline, the amount of money flowing to Washington and Harrisburg continues to increase year after year, and spending continues to increase. And I think this is the time to ask questions about where's the money going. So we'll go to the next slide. And I just want to show this that this was actually a slide from 2010. In 2010, we had 99 loads of diesel fuel purchased at Penn Waste, and the cost of the diesel fuel was $1,865,000. And what's even more amazing, is 24.5% of all the fuel we purchased was for taxes. Federal, state, local taxes. Now, If we went out to the entrance of the Holiday Inn, the Holidome, out on Route 74, there's a Sheetz gas station. And I can tell you that there probably is a tanker that pulls in there. There are probably 3 tankers a day based on the amount of gallons they pump. And the tanker that pulls up the Sheetz and dumps gasoline or diesel fuel is paying the same, is basically paying the same taxes that we would be paying. So if you just think about all the trucks that going to all the Rudder stores, the Shipley stores, the Sheetz stores, and miscellaneous stores here in York County, that load of diesel fuel or gasoline is worth almost $20,000, and $5,000 of it is for taxes. That's pretty staggering when you really think about it. Now, we also pay license fees. You know, on your cars, you pay inspection fees. So the fees, you know, again, you know, it's sort of the cost of getting anywhere today or doing anything, but I thought this was pretty amazing when you think that, just think about the next time you drive by a gas station or convenience store and you see a tanker there. If that tanker has fuel worth $20,000, $5,000 is taxes. Now, we're going to talk about, you know, when I talk about tax burdens, you know, or taxes, I mean, we have federal taxes, we have local taxes, but, and again, this would every business that is in business legitimately in the United States is paying these taxes. Federal taxes, Social Security, state taxes, local taxes, unemployment taxes. There's something that I failed to put on this slide, and it's just another amazing number. Medicare taxes. Every person that receives a payroll check has 2.5% taken out of their paycheck for Medicare. The company you work for or your employer pays another 2.5%. So just think about this. Every dollar in America that is issued for payroll, 5% goes to Medicare. And it's, you know, again, it's a staggering number when you think about it. Next slide. You know, again, you know, we're showing rates. You know, almost a little under 8% for Social Security. You know, the federal unemployment fund, the state unemployment fund. The state unemployment fund is currently 5%. The federal unemployment fund is a shade under 1%, but that's 6%. So, you know, I was not a great student in school. But the one thing that I do remember, and it's been great for me today, that I do remember that 2 + 2 = 4. Always has and always will. Okay? It doesn't equal 5. It doesn't equal 6. But when you start adding, you know, 2.5% out of every paycheck for Medicare, and then the employer matches it at 2.5, that's 5. You take Social Security, federal unemployment, state unemployment. It's staggering what everybody's paying, and there's no end in sight. So we'll go to the next slide. And again, you know, we talk about other things that we pay. Everything we purchase, we pay sales tax. When you purchase something in this, if everyone in this room purchases something that is sales tax taxable, you pay 6%. So do other businesses. Again, it's just staggering the amount that's collected. Something that is being phased out over the next 2 to 3 years in Pennsylvania is the capital stock tax. It's a tax that, you know, Pennsylvania is one of the few states that has it. That's one thing that our new governor and the legislature and Senate has worked on, and it's being phased out over the next 2 to 3 years. The 2290 is a heavy axle tax that we pay for our trucks. And, you know, every truck in America pays this tax. And, you know, the $15,000 is really an outdated number. It's more like $25,000 a day. That was a 2010 number. And when we talk about truck FET taxes, the truck FET taxes that we're talking about on this slide are not the same taxes that we pay when we buy a new vehicle. This would be FET taxes that we pay on tires, for example. On the, you know, we have large steering tires on all of our trucks. And, you know, a lesson I learned, you know, 10 years ago, I thought FET was based on the dollar amount that you paid for the tires. It's actually based on the weight of the tire. But we'll pay about another $47,000 this year in FET taxes, but mostly for tire purchases for our trucks. And truck registrations, again, this is an outdated number, but, you know, again, we all are paying registration fees, and every vehicle on the road that's owned individually or by a company, everybody's paying a registration fee. So, I mean, we could just continue to use my simple calculator and add up the numbers, but it's a huge amount of money being collected by state and federal government. And you know, I always like to show this slide, and you know, it's if you operate a business today, and I will tell you as a business owner, business is tough. It's very competitive, a lot of regulations, a lot of stuff going on in business. But out of a dollar, you know, almost 25% of our cost goes for disposal costs, labor and benefits, and then another 25 cents for truck fuel and repairs. And you put insurance on there at say 10 cents, and office G&A at 10. And your profit before taxes are really 5 pennies or 5 cents out of a dollar. That's 5%. And then when the government gets finished with you, you know, if you have a profit today, you know, you're typically in a 40 to 50% tax bracket, so you're left over with 2 to 2.5 cents out of that dollar. And we continue, for example, when we buy the trucks are 100. I'll be, you know, very honest. Our trucks are 100% financed. What's not financed on the trucks is we put cameras on the trucks, we put additional equipment on all the signage on the trucks, and the taxes we pay out of pocket. So we have to pay out of profits. We repaint our bathrooms, we retile our bathrooms. I'm a believer that, you know, when our employees, no matter who it is in our company, come into our company in the morning, and when they come back in at the end of the day, I'm a big believer that clean bathrooms are a must. That's just the way I was raised. I just think it's important. And so, you know, we clean the bathrooms and renovate the bathrooms or repaint our offices. That all comes out of profits after tax. So that's not really true. It comes out of profit before tax, but we're reinvesting the dollars back in our business. So we're going to go on the next slide. And you know, these are issues that, you know, they haven't changed in 16 months, and they really haven't changed in the time I've been in business. And I started my first base company in 1985, so, you know, I'm 25 years plus. And you know, a lot of these items are the same items, and some of them have become more intense. But, you know, finding qualified workers, you know, it's a real challenge. But I think one of the reasons it's such a challenge today, and I do believe that the reason unemployment is so high is because we've extended benefits for 2 years. And it's not a good thing. And I'm a believer, and I'm going to be vocal about this, if you give someone morphine for 2 years, you can't get them off of morphine. And, you know, I mean, it's a fact of life. But, you know, the other problem we have, and no one is saying this publicly, we have a huge drug problem in this country. Absolutely huge and out of control. Last year at Penn Waste, we had approximately 2,000 plus people that walked in and filled out applications. If we drug tested every person on site, without a doubt, I guarantee you we would probably have a 35 to 40% failure rate. And it might be 50 to 60, but I can assure you it's a big problem. But we have people that are calling us periodically saying, my unemployment benefits are going to run out next week, I need a job. Well, where were you for the last year? And we do have job openings. And I know of a lot of companies that are looking for people. Now, one of the things that's happening, a lot of the jobs out there require new skills. You have to be computer literate. There are different skills, and there are jobs. But I think unemployment benefits, the extension for 2 years, has not been a good thing. And I believe that it's going to be tough to get that group of people back to work. And I think if you're off for two years and you're not continuing to learn at your place of employment, and you're not being social with other people, I think you lose skills. I think, you know, brain cells disappear. So it's tough. And again, I will tell you that unions are a big concern to me and to a lot of my friends that own businesses. Card check was attempted. The passage of card check was attempted 2 years ago. And today, what President Obama has done is he is trying to go around Congress and the Senate. And what he's done is he has appointed NLRB attorneys, or former union attorneys, to the NLRB, and he's trying his executive order process to have card check instituted. And I can tell you something, unions are there may have been a place at one time, but it's not good today. And I just think times have changed. And I look at the teachers. Bill, you're running for school board. And I saw a teacher in the paper who had a quote probably 2 weeks ago, said it's, don't take money away from our children. Well, you know what, I think what's happened, the unions have basically dictated to the districts, we expect more, and if we don't get more, we're going to strike. So we now have wages that I think are higher than really they should be. The big problem we have are the pension issues, and that's a whole other issue. But again, union and card check is a big issue for anybody that operates a business and wants to stay union free. Prevailing wage. Why am I interested in prevailing wage? Well, what prevailing wage means that if you see a project going on, like for example on 83, south of Route 30 between Route 30 and Memorial Hospital, there's a bridge that's being replaced at Brewery Products. The cement finisher who works on that project is probably being paid 30 to 40% more than a cement finisher would be paid on a private project. Let's say if a private building was going up. And my trucks the trucks at Penn Waste are traveling all over state and county roads, especially state roads, and I-83 obviously is a federal highway. But our trucks are running in potholes just like your cars are. And I think, our roads can definitely be improved, and our trucks are getting beat to death. So I have an interest in seeing prevailing wage reform take place, because I want to see more road improvements and more infrastructure. And if we had an adjustment to prevailing wage, most likely we could have more bridges being replaced in the state of Pennsylvania. We could have more infrastructure projects taking place. So that's why I have an interest in prevailing wage. Tort reform would be frivolous lawsuits, and they happen all the time. We've had it in our company, and thank goodness we haven't had many of them. But we have a system where you can sue anyone, and the plaintiff can bring the action. The defendant has to defend, and if you're a defendant and you have to pay a law firm to defend the action, and you win, at the end of the day, you still have the expense. And we need to change the legal system in this country.
Amen.
Exactly. The new healthcare bill, the Obamacare bill that has been passed, we're seeing more regulation because there's more reporting required within this new regulation. So, again, that list of 60 items is probably going to go up to 65 or 68 within the next 2 years. So, again, it's just another area. I believe we need workers' compensation reform. There are people that legitimately get hurt and they legitimately deserve to be compensated. But we have had, I personally, with my waste industry experience, I've been involved with a minimum of 5 workers' comp fraud cases over the last 25 plus years. I mean, to the point that 3 years ago, Penn Waste settled out with a worker who came to work for our company as a temporary, worked for 90 days. We had a temp to hire policy. 3 days after the individual was on our payroll, he became injured. And we went through the whole process, and through the discovery process, we discovered that he had a workers' comp injury with another York company, a well-known company, and settled out for $80,000. Now, when we hired that person, we couldn't ask. There are a lot of things we can't ask and we don't know. But when we do hire drivers, we can run MDRs, we can look at the driving record, we can go back 10 years. We can see if there's DUIs involved, any type of accidents, speeding, stop sign violations. But when it gets to workers' comp, there's stuff you can't ask. So I'm a big believer we need workers' comp reform. The PHRC, Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission, that's an agency in Harrisburg that's become very political. It's anyone can go in and file a complaint. The company, the plaintiff is free to do that, and the company involved has to defend. And again, this is back to our legal system. When you get involved with the PHRC, trust me, you don't want to go out and do it yourself. You want to use probably our labor law attorney. Again, the pension crisis. Bill mentioned about the school boards and and the school system. We are, trust me when I tell you this, that there is no way we are ever going to survive the system that we're in right now. We cannot pay. You have teachers that retire and that maybe get $100,000 a year for the rest of their life. and they're retiring in their, say, early 60s, and they have a life expectancy going into 85. And so just think about a teacher who retires with $100,000 a year has another 25 years to live. 25 times 100 is $2.5 million. So, the government has become a place where there must have been a sign out, whether it's school boards, or school districts, or it's public works departments, or any part of government. There must have been a sign out that said, come to work for the school district, become a teacher, or come to work for government, and we'll make you a millionaire. We can't sustain this, and we can't have all these people collecting this money that we've obligated ourselves to over the years, plus continue to hire people. And I mentioned this 16 months ago. A lot of you remember Bethlehem Steel that was based up in Steelton. When Bethlehem Steel filed bankruptcy, if they had 10,000 workers working for them, and I know the number was less, but I'm just going to illustrate, if they had 10,000 people working for the company, they had 20,000 people that were getting benefits. It was 2 to 1 getting benefits that no longer work for the company. That's why they filed bankruptcy. You can't, I can probably carry 200 or 300 pounds on my back. You put 600 on my back, there's no way I can stand up. So the pension crisis is huge. And I don't know the answer, but nobody is I think, you hear the term kicking the can down the road, that's what we're doing. And I don't know how we'll ever survive this financially if we don't deal with the pension crisis. Antitrust laws. The IRS, let's talk about the IRS. I believe I've heard the number since President Obama became elected, he's hired an additional 15,000 IRS agents. Now, I don't know if anybody's ever been through an IRS audit, but it's not fun, and it's time consuming. And I've been through IRS audits and other audits, and typically at the end of the audit, there aren't issues, or they're large issues, they're very small issues. We had a sales tax audit 4 years ago from the state of Pennsylvania. We ended up owing $13,000 in back sales tax. What were the sales taxes that we owed for? I buy books on the internet from Amazon.com. Amazon doesn't collect sales tax. As a company, we're required to pay the sales tax. We were buying lime green t-shirts, safety clothing, from a company in California. We weren't being paid sales tax. We track that now. We have a software program. Every purchase that's made in our company, we now track, and we actually remit sales tax to the state of Pennsylvania on a quarterly basis as we track it, and we're doing that internally. But 15,000 additional IRS agents, to me, that's growth in government. So government is growing. And then again, I mentioned growing government, more taxes. So this is why I've become active, and I've really always been an active person, in the political arena, but the last couple of years it's just gotten crazy. So somebody has to be out there, and I think you being here tonight is equally important to me presenting. So we'll want a couple more, and again, we just talk about the same stuff, but I just think that people have to care and people have to get out there. We can't continue to elect people and trust them and just think that they're doing the right thing, because a lot of times it's more about them than it is about the taxpayer, and the person has to pay on the other end. So I also want to leave, I'm wrapping up, but I want to leave a message that business is really, really important. And I know I'm talking about Penn Waste and the company I'm involved in, but businesses employ people. And tomorrow is a very important day at Penn Waste. Tomorrow is paycheck day. And I'm very proud to tell you that we'll issue probably in the neighborhood of 315 or 316 paychecks. Everyone will be able to take their checks to the bank, endorse them, and be able to cash it. Our checks don't bounce. We can put them in. We have direct deposit. We have many different things. But it's important for me that the people that work for our company, they get to pay mortgages, they pay rent, they pay for groceries, they pay for personal expenses. And I know over the years, and I'm proud of this, if they're sending a son and daughter to college and they're paying some college tuition out of their paycheck, I'm proud of that. That's what businesses are all about. And everybody in this room works for some business in some form or fashion. Now, if you're employed by the government derives its income from from taxes, from businesses and individuals. It doesn't manufacture anything. But we're a service business, and we have a lot of manufacturing companies here in York County. And I think it's important that businesses, I think, are just so critical to the community. And in addition to issuing paychecks, you know, we're a major donor to a lot of the nonprofits in South Central Pennsylvania. And we have a lot of agencies that do really great things. And if you're familiar with United Way, you know, we're proud to be a part of the United Way community. And United Way does a lot for other agencies throughout York County and South Central Pennsylvania. But businesses we're not the enemy. We're actually not bad people. And you know, I look around the room, I see some business owners. And at the end of the day, businesses issue paychecks. And I think we can't be seen as bad people. And I'm proud of what we do at our company. And I can tell you something, every time I pass a Penn Waste truck, if it's on 83 Route 30, North George Street, wherever it is, I'm proud of the crew. I'm proud of the driver, the truck. I mean, we have clean trucks, great image. And we have an exceptional team at our company. And that's why we've grown from 2 trucks to 100 trucks in 12 years. So businesses are a key component to every community throughout the U.S. So with that, I'm going to wrap up. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to ask questions. And you can visit our website, and we have tons of videos and all kinds of information. So thank you.
I had the privilege to work for a man with the same mentality you got for 41 years. And you might know him. You heard of Martin Patero. You might know Jim Martin. Starting ground zero, up, when you went to work for him, he told you one thing when he hired you. One thing. You bring the union in, kick your job in your body because you won't have it. And I was able to work for that man for 41 years.
Well, I think, what you're relating to is there's open communication, and he told you. Unfortunately, I can't voice those type of opinions in my company today because the NLRB might come in and fine me for having an opinion. But, I just think there are, things are changing in our community, and I appreciate you sharing that story.
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you for coming. I really believe you're a good man and a good manager, and I hope you must get exercise because of all you do, you look like you're physically in good shape. My question is this. You had mentioned Bethlehem Steel. As a summer student, I worked at Jones and Laughlin's, and I found out, well, first of all, I'm in a union family in the old days when they were really needed. As I grew up, went into college, I ran into real union people at the steel mills, and they got up to 13 weeks vacation per year at the time. Okay, they had enough seniority. So there's a lot of things wrong with them. I'd like to go back to the point you made about the unions. I have a lot against unions based on my own experience. Okay, not selfish, but I also see St. Peter or St. Paul said, none of us is inherently good. So my question is, if we change and get the unions depowered, do you see a solution that's in between the current power levels they have as something better than just being against unions? In other words, if management gets everything in its favor, then what St. Paul invokes there could work against that. You see what I mean? What do you see that's different nowadays that would allow us to have less powerful unions? And I'll be quiet now and listen. Thank you.
Well, I think I'm going to try to answer your question, but Pennsylvania is not a right-to-work state. And if Pennsylvania, again, I know I'm up here, I know enough to be dangerous, but what I do understand about a right-to-work state is that if you're a right-to-work state, the employee has, and you have a union in your company or organization, you have the choice whether you pay dues or not. Today, it's being a non-right to work state, it's automatic dues withdrawal from your paycheck. And I think that if people of course had a choice between whether they're paying dues or not, I think that's going to diminish some of the financial power of the unions. But I can tell you that if, I'd be willing to, again, I've been in my business for 25 plus years. I've learned a lot. Do I know everything? No. But I can tell you that I think if I sat down and I did counterpoint a debate with someone representing a union with what we do for our employees and the people who work for our company versus, what a union does for the employees. And I mean, I think it's unions, especially if you want to look at the school districts, it's almost become a job preservation program. Unions are, it's all about power, and I think that, over time, if we can educate, I've been reading lately, and I haven't had the opportunity to watch the news a lot in the last week, but I'm watching the Occupy Wall Street protests, and there are people that are that are involved in those that don't even know what they're protesting about. But I've watched now, and I've been reading that the unions are now starting to financially, help some of those protests. And I just think that education, knowledge is power. It's incredible. And I think if you can educate people, and again, I'm sharing with you tonight the regulations and the challenges I have every day, being the president of Penn Waste. And we have, we have a lot of people within our company that help operate this company. But if we can educate, there's the old saying, you can't eat an elephant at one bite, so you eat a bite at a time. But I think if we can educate, and hopefully tonight you walked away again, or my expectation, I don't want to say hopefully because hope's not a strategy, but my expectation tonight is that my presentation did have some take-home value for everyone in the room, and I was able to share the challenges that we face running our businesses. But I think that if becoming a right-to-work state would be critical for Pennsylvania, and I just think education. And when you start looking at the numbers, and I'm familiar because Bill is actually running for the school board in my district. I live in York Suburban, and I've been looking at some of the financials, and I'm pretty amazed at what I see. And I think if we continue to educate people, we're going to see a movement. I think we're going to see more of a free market movement. So hopefully I answered your question.
Thank you.
Yes, gentleman in the back.
There are 2 points. One, you were talking about the growth of regulations. I was reading the other day that they claim that the current administration is issuing 3,500 new regulations per day. 3,500 per day. The other thing was that the 984 arrests that they made in the Occupy Wall Street group, when they checked the addresses where these people lived, the median value of the home that they were living in was $500,000.
I read something about the Occupy Wall Street numbers, and I saw something obviously that it's not a $99,000 home they're living in.
No.
So, but the regulation, what you mentioned about the regulation, I don't know the number, but unfortunately, and I don't want to insult anybody that's an attorney, but I have a lot of friends that are attorneys. But we have far too many people in government. If you go to Harrisburg, you go to Washington, there are a tremendous number of attorneys. And I've learned a lot running my business day to day. And attorneys are great at practicing law. They don't really know a lot about running businesses. And that's why I just think we see all this increased regulation. And then what's happening in government today, a lot of it's listen, you want something for your district, you approve this piece of legislation, you help us get more regulation in, and we'll help you get, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. But at the end of the day, all I can tell you is that there's no doubt about it. Something somewhere was implemented as new regulation today. The scary part is how many of them were.
Scott, regarding regulations, over the past years, have you been successful, or your team been successful in eliminating any of those, or preventing new ones to be enacted?
I have been involved in efforts where we have been successful in stopping some regulation. We don't have great successes. We've had success in changing some regulation. But I'll tell you, that's a great question, and I want to be careful how I answer this and what I'm about to tell you. And I'm a lifelong Republican, and I was born in York County, and I've been here all my life, and I've operated my businesses here. We have a Republican governor, we have a Republican House, and a Republican Senate in Harrisburg. They were all elected and took office in January. I have not seen any change that has made my business easier to operate, and that's unfortunate. And it's not right. It's something, Governor Corbett ran on a platform, we need to be more business friendly. And I can tell you that I'm writing more letters, and I've written more and more letters, in the last year than I've written probably in the last 3 or 4 years. And it's an uphill battle. But the answer is no, I haven't really seen a change. I've seen more. But, I do spend a fair amount of time in Washington, in Harrisburg. I was involved in Senator Toomey's election efforts, and I believe Senator Toomey is an incredibly sincere person. I think he's doing a great job in Washington. I've really gotten to know his staff, his Pennsylvania staff, really well. Two of his staff people, one from Philadelphia and Harrisburg, were in his state director, Bob D'Souza, and Josh Novotny from Philadelphia. We were at the Mack truck plant 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about EPA regulations. And I think what's really important is that we have access to more people today than we did. We definitely have more access to Senator Toomey's staff. They're incredibly bright people. His state director, actually, I did not know this until about a month ago, is an attorney, and he clerked with a federal judge. He was a federal prosecutor. So he's seen a lot of things. Now he's on the business side. But what's important is that, 2 years ago, we didn't have access to Senator Specter's staff. They didn't come out. We have some representatives here from our local delegation that have never visited my business, and I've invited them. But I think it's frustrating. But I think we're gaining ground, and I think everybody knows I'm not going away. I mean, I could stand up here and say, oh, we use 13 attorneys at Penn Waste, and just make that statement. But I have a spreadsheet I'm willing to share with you, the names, the law firms, and it's going to take. It's not going to happen overnight. But I think again, it's very important that people are here tonight. This is I think so critical for all the challenges we face. So hopefully I answered your question. But I'm still frustrated, and so I think my blood pressure is the same as it was 2 years ago. It might be a little worse. Yes.
Scott, how would something like ENDA, which people think is pretty harmless legislation, how would something like ENDA affect your business? What would be the implications of that? The ENDA is the Employment Non-Discrimination Act.
Well, Beth, you're asking a question that would really be, becomes a labor law area, and we have to. Again, there's so much compliance that we have in that area, and again, we use Ann Zerby with CGA locally, who helps us with our employment compliance. But anything that puts more burden on an employer and gives an employee more rights to challenge the system. It's all. I can't imagine that it's going to be a win-win situation. The other thing is when we get up every day, and I think anybody that gets up and operates a business today, you don't get up thinking, I got to win today and I want to see my customer lose. We all operate our businesses. We want it to be win-win and we want to be fair. But Beth, there are so many pieces of legislation out there that, the sheer magnitude of the stuff out there is almost impossible for us to know and manage. And that's why I think it's critical. You've been spending a lot of time understanding what's happening, especially federally. So.
The one thing I just want to add to what Beth said. One of the provisions in the ENDA legislation is that employers have to provide a non-gender specific bathroom for their employees to comply with the Employee Non-Discrimination Act. Your new building on North George Street, do you have a bathroom where men and women can use, or you just have a men's and women's bathroom?
No, when we built our new building, and we built it 2 years ago, totally compliant. We have a ladies' room and a men's room.
So if that act actually became a law, you would have to actually find room to put in another bathroom.
Yes, that's what we understand. And we actually had, it was transgender legislation that was introduced in I think in May of 2010. And, yes, we actually had it researched by a law firm, and our understanding is that would be the case if you have really a public facility. You would have to have 3 bathrooms.
So there's more cost on the businesses that's really unneeded. We're going to take one more question, and then we have to move on. That's okay, Scott.
Yes.
Now, Scott, you said about your group. Is there a link somewhere or somewhere we can follow where your group is when you're going to Washington and some of the stuff that you're pushing or trying to push against? I mean, how do we know how to get behind you? And I do want to add one comment about the unemployment being extended. I just interviewed a guy a couple weeks ago, knocked the interview out of the park. We were so excited to get him. Went out from the job. He asked me not to hire him for another month until his unemployment ran out. So we said, not a problem. You can stay there a little longer.
Well, I appreciate you sharing, and we've encountered that for basically 2 years. And we have people that are coming and applying for position, and I don't know what's motivating them, because they're sitting down and literally calculating that they can, if they came to work for us, they would bring home $610 a week. And I think the maximum unemployment amount is in the 500s, and so they're calculating and saying, well, I could get $65 a week more coming to work, and I have to get out of bed 5 days. I'm just not going to do it. If you go to our website, we're a member of the state, Pennsylvania State, Pennsylvania Waste Industries Association. We're a member of the National Association, the National Solid Waste Management Association. We're a member of the local chamber and some other business groups. Interesting, we are not a member of the state chamber, and I'm having a tough time joining the state chamber at this time, and maybe we'll be convinced to do that because there's been some changes. But I look at a lot of these organizations get bigger and bigger, and it really becomes organizations that just employ more people, and not a lot gets done. But if you go to our website, we have a communications and PR coordinator in our company, Amanda Ellis, who's here tonight, and we have a lot of information on our website. And I just think that if feel free to contact us. I'd be more than happy to give anyone a tour of our company and show you really what we do. And we have, again, we have great managers and supervisors, and you'll see what we do in action. I'll be more than happy if you're interested in an individual tour, group tour. I just, it's a bite at a time. And I'm not bashful about contacting, the local York delegation. I've really been active last year with Stan Saylor. And Stan's in a very critical position in Harrisburg. And, what you have to do with people in Harrisburg, especially definitely in Harrisburg, you have to make an appointment and go up and see them. And actually, I'm making an appointment to go up with 5 or 6 other business people sometime in the next month. And combined, we probably collectively employ somewhere between 2,500 and 3,500 people. And a lot of times, if it's an individual, you really don't get a lot of traction. I know the York County Builders Association has been active. We're active. We're a member of the Builders Association. But I'm focused on, I'm really only focused on five key things. There's an article that was done by the Commonwealth Foundation about my activities, and again, it's workers' comp reform, changing the tax structure in the state of Pennsylvania, tort reform. I mean, I'm sticking to basically the same 5 things. So, and when you look at the cost of, we have a picture of the front load truck I was showing you earlier, and how the cost of that truck went up $60,000 over a 10-year period. About 15 to 18,000 of the cost of that truck going up were engine mandates mandated by the EPA. And when I went to the Mack truck plant, we actually have a video. We're going to figure out how to get it on our website, and you know, we're going to maybe expand this. But we went to the Mack truck plant, and we were in the showroom. They started up a brand new Mack tractor in the showroom, and I climbed up on an 8-foot step ladder, maybe it was a 10-foot, and I stuck my hand down the stack. You know, it was probably an 8-inch chrome stack. Stuck my hand down while the engine's running, and I could feel air moving around, but there's no heat. It's just I could feel air moving around. So they revved it up, and you know, I could still have my hand down there. You know, no heat. So I had a white bath towel from my home, and I took the white bath towel and stuck it over the exhaust, the end of the truck stack, and I had them rev the truck up. And you couldn't feel any heat. I took the towel off. There's no soot on the, you know, on the towel. And I took the towel and I could smell the downy that was still on the towel. And I just think that, you know, if there's things that you know in your business are totally contrary to what the guys in Washington or Harrisburg think, we need to continue to work together. Anybody that runs trucks, you know, in the room, if you have an interest in, you know, talking about regulations with trucks, you know, again, we're also a member of the Pennsylvania Motor Truck Association, and they're big on lobbying. I'd like to mention one other thing, and I actually personally write a check to the Pennsylvania Motor Truck Association, to the Pennsylvania Motor Truck Association PAC. And I know Congressman Platts talks about that he doesn't take PAC money, but actually the Pennsylvania Motor Truck Association then gives money to candidates, as I do with our State Waste Association, our National Waste Association. And PAC money, we're not, you know, again, we're just a small business in York, Pennsylvania that's contributing money to a Pennsylvania Motor Truck Association PAC. And they turn around and give money. It's not big, bad, evil PAC money. So I think you know, we need more clarity on PAC money and really what it's doing. So hopefully I answered your question. I got a little long-winded. So thank you. And thank you for your comment on unemployment, because there are more and more stories from employers every day. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I just want to add a couple things. Scott Wagner is really putting himself out there, and he is a friend to York County. He's putting himself out there. He doesn't have. Sorry. If you weren't awake, you're awake now. But he has put himself out there when a lot of the businessmen in this area have not. And he's been fighting for the right things for a long time. Another thing that he did not mention is that one of the founding members, as is Ream Printing, they're all sitting in the back. The Ream team is in the back, but they're founding members of the Buy Local Coalition in South Central Pennsylvania, and that's a coalition of businesses in this area that meet on a regular basis, and they're trying to keep the people buying local, you know, buying out York County, Lancaster County, Cumberland County, instead of going outside the area. Keep the money in the area, so the money helps us in the area. The other thing was, when we brought up the ENDA, when Beth brought up the ENDA Act, I just wanted to let you know that our Congressman Platts is a supporter of the ENDA Act. This is the type of regulation that really kills small business. And you know, Todd talks about being for free markets and capitalism. He talks one thing and votes another way. I urge you to look into his record. The other thing is that there was some talk about the unemployment compensation being extended. Todd Platts also voted for all those extensions. So just keep that in mind when he's talking about capitalism and free markets. On to another subject. We counted the money that we collected tonight for the 5-1 Cavalry Single Soldier Project, and we collected $529.75. Thank you very much. That will all be going to the CAV unit for those single soldiers. Now I'd like to introduce a gentleman that's been a member of the York 912 Patriots for well over a year. He lives down in southern York County. He's a police officer in Baltimore County. We do not endorse candidates, but we do give them a platform to speak so they can get their name out there. Ted Waga is a type of man that we need to run for these positions. And right now I'd like to introduce Ted Waga. Come on up, Ted.
Good evening. How's everyone tonight? I'd like to thank Scott and Beth and New York 912 for giving me the opportunity to speak to you tonight. My wife tells me that I tend to run on, so I'm going to stick to my notes to try to keep it brief. But I do want to give you a background of who I am, what I'm about, so you have a complete picture. My name is Ted Waga, and I am running for the United States Congress against Congressman Platts in the Republican primary. Once I talk about who I am, I'm going to talk about why I'm running. This wasn't a decision that I made just yesterday. This has been in my heart for some time. And then I'm going to talk about my platform. What I first want to tell you is what I'm not. I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not a career politician. I do not intend to be a career politician. My goal is to be a citizen legislator. I don't want to go to Washington and make my life there. I want to go to Washington and make changes there. I was born and raised in Baltimore County, Maryland, just south of York County, to a blue-collar family. And being in a blue-collar family, we didn't have a whole lot of money. You know, my parents struggled at times. And my dad taught me a couple key lessons when I was young. He taught me, one, if you want something, you have to work for it. There are no free lunches. Nobody's going to give you anything. A lot of people lose that thought today. A lot of people think they're owed something. But I was taught at an early age a strong work ethic. And that stuck with me throughout my lifetime. Even before I was old enough to get a real job, in the summer, I would go around and cut grass. In the winter, I would shovel snow. I'd go down to the local Mars supermarket and carry bags. That's a Baltimore chain. I don't know if you guys have heard of Mars, but until they chased me off. And then I would also deliver newspapers. And cutting the grass was not an easy chore because I wasn't allowed to use a gas mower. My father wouldn't let me. I had to use one of those old metal reel mowers. Anybody remember those things? Yeah, they're not very fun. And imagine just pulling that around the whole community. But, you know, if I wanted something, I knew I had to work for it. I wasn't going to be given anything. Once I was old enough to have a job, I got a job. And I had a job all through high school. I'd go to school during the day, and in the evening, I'd work at my job. As an adult, I've always had a job. Everything I have, I've worked for. I haven't been given anything, and I don't expect to be given anything. I'm not afraid to roll up my sleeves and put in the time. And this is the type of work ethic that I hope to take to Washington with me when I serve you. I'm not afraid to put in the time. I'm not going to be a part-time legislator. I'm going to work full-time for you as a citizen legislator. Shortly after graduating high school, I met my wife, Sherry. My ultimate goal was to go to college. That kind of changed. I met her one evening, and we spent, I don't know, hours sitting and just talking. And I knew that night I was going to marry that girl. And I didn't let her get away. Together, we have two beautiful daughters. My wife, Sherry's right here in the front. My daughters, Kaylee and Taylor, are right there. And as a young couple, we struggled at times. It was tough. But again, that strong work ethic that my father taught me, I would work as many jobs as I had to make ends meet. And I was lucky enough that at about the age of 22, I got a job working for Merit Oil Company down in Baltimore as a station manager. They had a station that wasn't doing very well. And I got the job, and the guy said, you got to turn this place around. We're losing money. It's your job to fix it. And that was all he told me. So I went in, and I looked at the stock, I looked at everything, and I looked at where we were losing money, where that station was losing money, made the recommendations. We turned that station around, and here I am, a 22-year-old guy. I'm supervising people 2.5 times my age. But as a leader, I was able to lead those folks and turn that station around. As a result of that, that regional manager put me in charge of another station. So now I'm managing 2 stations as a 20-something kid, supervising people 2 times my age because of that strong work ethic that my father instilled in me. I put in more hours than I was supposed to, and I didn't get paid for those hours. But I knew that that's what I had to do. And so things were starting to look pretty good. I was making decent money. I was successful in that position when the opportunity came for me to become a Baltimore County police officer. Now this is something that I had wanted to be ever since I was a child, was to be a Baltimore County police, was to be a police officer. And there's actually a story behind that. It's kind of funny and not funny. It was summer between 5th and 6th grade. My brother and I, along with a friend of ours, went to the store to get some candy or something of that nature. And on the way home, I wasn't really paying attention to them, and they had already crossed the street. I, trying to catch up with them, ran between 2 cars. How many can guess what happened next? I got plowed. I got hit hard. The car was probably going about 30, 35 miles per hour. And back then, the cars weren't plastic with styrofoam bumpers. It was a metal car with a metal bumper. And my brother made fun of me after the fact because he said I flew so high in the air. I said I looked like Superman. Luckily, I was out cold. I didn't feel anything. All I remember was getting up. My knee hurt a little bit. I had some bumps, some scrapes, but I was okay. I was going to leave. I was ready to go home. I started to walk away, and they stopped me. They said, no, we already called 911. You got to go to the hospital. And so the medics came, and I told them, I'm fine. I don't want to go to the hospital. And the police officer had gone and got my mom and brought her down, and the medics told her, you know, he looks fine. He can go home if he wants to. So the officer took us home, and when you're in a police officer, you can't get out the back doors from the inside. They got to let you out from the outside. And the officer got out, let my wife out, or let my mother out, and then went around, and he let me out. And I got out, started to walk to the house. And he stopped me, and he turned me around, and he put his hand on my shoulder, and he looked at me. And he says, you know what, kid, you're lucky. He says, somebody must have something very special planned for you. And to him, that probably was nothing, because he got up, got in his car, and left. But to me, that meant something. I mean, that made me feel really good. He helped me to feel good about myself. And that's when I made the decision that I wanted to be like him. I wanted to be a police officer, and I wanted to help people. And so when that opportunity presented itself, even though I was going to take it was about a $5,000 pay cut at the time, I knew that that's what I had to do. And so I took the job as a police officer. And we struggled a little bit again. But when I got through the academy and I got through my field training, I was able to work secondary jobs. And I would work 2, sometimes 3 secondary security jobs to make ends meet. Again, that work ethic that my father taught me. And I took that into my regular job as an officer. I would work overtime if they asked for it. I would do any details that they asked for. Nobody likes to do details, but I didn't mind. I wanted to do everything I could to help the department and help people. And very shortly, within a couple years, I became an informal leader on our squad. I had folks who were senior to me coming to me, asking me how to handle calls, asking me how to write reports, asking me what they should do in certain situations. I'm the junior guy, and they're coming to me. My supervisors took note of this as well, and they constantly encouraged me, you need to get promoted. You got to move up the ranks. And that was something that was in my heart. And so I did, and I was successful in becoming a corporal and a sergeant. And throughout my career, I've earned the respect of my supervisors and my peers and my subordinates. But more importantly, I've had an opportunity to help many people over the years. I had one group of elderly folks, they were on the way home to D.C. from Atlantic City. They had one car that they were in, the car broke down. They had no family, they had no friends. Nobody to come get them, and here they are stuck in Baltimore. So I gave them a drive home, dropped them off each at their front door. To me, that's my job. No problem. But to them, that meant something. And every one of them wrote me a letter thanking me for how I had helped them and what I had done for them. And that, to me, is more rewarding than making a lockup. 4 years ago, I took command of the Baltimore County Auxiliary Police Team. I'm very proud of this group of people. These are volunteers who put their lives in harm's way every day to do just like I want to do, help people, help their community. At the time I took over, there were 29 auxiliary officers, and the team had declined in number year after year after year. However, I had a vision for that team. And the Bible says that if you don't have a vision, the people will perish. And so I shared that vision with the leaders of the group. And together, through strong leadership, through teamwork, through dedication, perseverance, this team has grown every year since. And we've grown to over 70 members at this point, and we're still growing. So I'm very proud and very happy and very excited about my career as a police officer. And the decision that I've made to run for Congress was not an easy one. In addition to being a police officer, I currently serve as the president of the Homeowners Association where we live. This is not a paid position. This is a voluntary position. It has consumed a great deal of my time, personal money, time away from the family, but it's something that I felt I had to do. I was elected to the position in September of 2010. And again, I ran there because I saw what was going on in our community. I saw how the community itself was going down. It was depreciating. Our pavilion was falling apart. Our trail was falling apart. Things needed to be fixed, and nothing seemed to be getting done. We weren't getting any kind of feedback from the agent who was running our association at the time. And so I ran, and I was elected. And Once I was elected and I started to ask questions, I started to look at things, I saw that things just weren't right. Something was wrong. And I could have done what past board members had done and simply been a member in name only and let the managing agent continue to run the community into the ground. But I couldn't do that. So I made a tough decision. I went to the other board members and I made a motion to stop using that managing agent and to be a self-run association. To be an association where we, the people, would run our community, not some outside agency. Now, I knew this would mean a lot more work for us. I mean, it's very easy to sit back and let somebody else do the work for you and have your name up there. I'm the president of the executive board. It would have been very easy to do that, but I couldn't. I knew it was going to be hard work, but I also knew it was the right thing to do. Now, at the time, there were 3 members. And when I made the motion, one of the other members seconded it, so we had to vote. The 2 of us voted for it. The 3rd member voted against it, immediately tendered their resignation. So now there's 2 of us. Together, we decided we need to increase the board. We did that. We had elections in November of 2010, elected 3 new members to the board. We now have 5 members on the board. Once I had gotten all the information and everything from the managing agent, we found out pretty quickly we were $5,000 in debt. We were in trouble. We had no money to make repairs, to make improvements. If something happened to somebody in the community, we didn't have a reserve fund. We were in trouble. But again, through strong leadership and teamwork, this group of 5 have not only paid off that debt, we've not only made the improvements that I was talking about, but we look to have over $11,000 surplus at the end of this year, in only 1 year. Now, I know that running an association of 200 homes is not the same scale as governing the federal government, but the principles are the same. And one final thing you should know about me is that I am an unapologetic Christian. My wife and I, with our 2 daughters, we attend Windsor Assembly of God in Windsor. My wife teaches children's church and girls ministry, and I teach Royal Rangers. Now, I say that not to say I'm a perfect person. None of us are. But I am guided by my Christian principles and Christian values. Being a Christian and American, I'm also unwaveringly pro-life. The Declaration of Independence says that all men are created, and I want to focus on that word created for a second. All men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life with a capital L, liberty with a capital L, and the pursuit of happiness with a capital H. That baby that is created in that womb has an unalienable right to life. And it's our duty, our responsibility to secure that right for that child. And that's one of the things that I will seek to do if I am elected to go to Washington for you. Our country was founded on Christian morals and values. George Washington, our first president, said, "While we are zealously performing the duties of good Christians and soldiers, we certainly ought not be inattentive to higher duties of religion. To the distinguished character of patriot, it should be our highest glory to add the more distinguished character of Christian." Our first president, our founding father, said, hey, it's good to be a patriot. It's better to be a Christian patriot. Our country is where it is because of what our founding fathers did, because of their beliefs, the morals and values. John Adams, our second president and signer of the Declaration of Independence, in a letter to Thomas Jefferson, said the general principles on which the fathers achieved independence were the general principles of Christianity. Now, I know that our president at one time said America is no longer a Christian nation. I beg to differ. We are a Christian nation. However, over the years, we've moved further and further away from those Christian morals and values and principles that guided our founding fathers. And I think it's about time that we start instilling some morality and value-based decision-making back into Washington. Now, I mentioned earlier that I didn't just make this decision the other day. This is something that's been in my heart for 5 years to run for Congress. But I resisted it. Just as Mr. Wagner said, hope. I had hope that Washington would change. Things would turn around. Washington hasn't changed. Things haven't turned around. In fact, it's only gotten worse. And unless something is done, it'll continue to get worse. There's a saying that says we inherit our nation from our fathers. I believe we borrow it from our children. And when I give my nation back to these two girls, what am I giving them? When our children grow up and our grandchildren grow up, what are we giving them? Our elected officials have borrowed and spent our nation to the point of insolvency. We are bankrupt. As a nation, we are bankrupt. And if drastic changes aren't made, this nation will crumble under the weight of its debt. Make no mistake, it will crumble. We must draw a line in the sand and hold that line. We cannot compromise any further. Our elected officials have restricted our freedoms as individuals and as business owners through crippling legislation and regulation. It was mentioned a number of regulations that are passed per day, and I did a little study on this, and what I came up with was that over a 3-year period between 2008 and 2010, there were over 2,400 new regulations that were enacted. And they were enacted by unelected bureaucrats, people that we didn't elect into office. They were placed there. And yet they affect our lives every day through this regulation. And Congress has the power, through the Congressional Review Act, to stop any and all regulation before it's implemented. However, the last time that I was able to find that they did this was 2001 or 2002. That, my friends, is a dereliction of duty. Every single piece of regulation that comes down the pipe from these unelected bureaucrats should be carefully scrutinized by our elected officials, because these things affect us. Our elected officials have compromised our national security and increased our vulnerability by failing to secure our border. I thought for sure after 9/11 that would be taken care of, and yet here we are a decade later. We have a president who refuses to uphold the law when it comes to the Defense of Marriage Act. That is the law. And yet he refuses to uphold the law. And as a police officer, I believe in the rule of law. As the president, he doesn't care. We have a president, and Mr. Wagner mentioned this, who's sidestepping the political process and Congress, acting unilaterally through the use of executive orders. Several over the past week and a half. He's become a dictator. And Congress has not done anything to keep him in check. We have an attorney general who's implicated in the illegal access and transfer of assault rifles over the U.S.-Mexican border that resulted in the death of a U.S. Border Patrol agent. An agent doing his job, protecting this country, was killed because of the actions of our government. And we have a Congress that is seemingly doing nothing about these things. Sure, they have meetings, and they have hearings, but nobody seems to be held accountable for anything. It's simply business as usual. The incident I just mentioned, the gun running incident, they've been investigating that for 10 months. 10 months. If you're a detective and you're investigating a case, if it's not a homicide, and you're on it for 10 months, your boss is getting on your back saying, hey, when are you going to clear this thing? Let's do something with it. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm getting sick and tired of business as usual in Washington, D.C. This system in Washington, the way they do business, it's broke. It doesn't work. And you didn't break it. I didn't break it. Our elected officials in Washington broke it. And yet they expect us to trust them and send them back year after year to fix what they broke. They can't seem to lay aside their petty differences long enough to work together, identify the problem, and fix the problem. The bottom line is Congress must change the way they're doing business, because the way they're doing business right now isn't working. And if we're going to see positive changes, and we're going to change the way they do business, we have to change the mindset in Washington. We have to change the way that they're thinking. And the only way we can change the mindset in Washington is to change the people who are in Washington. We have to replace these lawyers and career politicians with citizen legislators, people who will go to Washington and do what's needed for the American people, not for the Republican Party, not for the Democratic Party, not for lobbyists, not for special interest groups, but for we, the people. So that's why I'm running for Congress, because we got to change Congress. We got to change Washington. So what do I propose? The 3 R's: reduce, repeal, and restore. It was mentioned how large our government is. Our government is a monstrosity that has grown out of control. We must reduce the size and the scope of our government. I mean, I don't know about you, but it seems like the federal government has their hands in every part of our lives, and I'm sure, you know, Mr. Wagner's presentation up here is a perfect example of that. Every aspect of his business is regulated by the government. Ronald Reagan once said years ago, "Do we believe in our capacity for self-government, or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves?" I have faith in our capacity as Americans to govern our own lives. We don't need these few intellectual elite, and I don't know how intellectual they are nowadays, to govern our lives for us. We can reduce the size of government by eliminating unnecessary departments, such as the Department of Education, the Department of Energy, EPA, and quite a few others. We can reduce the size of government by eliminating duplicative programs. I just heard the other day, the United States government spends $100 billion a year in duplicative programs. That's wasteful spending. If you do that in a business, you're going under. If your boss finds out that you're wasting money through duplicative programs, you're probably getting fired. We can reduce spending by eliminating all waste, fraud, and abuse. And this is big when it comes to entitlement programs. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, there is so much waste, fraud, and abuse in those programs that can be eliminated. They don't focus on that. We can reduce spending, and this is one I haven't heard, through reducing payroll costs. How do you do that? Furloughs. Everybody in the federal government gets a furlough, including those in Congress. Actually, I have a plan for them as well. My first bill, and I'll tell you guys, I posted it to my Facebook and on my website. 10% pay cut for every member of Congress, both in the House and the Senate. And just so that, you know, it'll keep them motivated, the pay cut won't be permanent. They'll get that 10% back when they've balanced the budget for 3 years straight and they've paid down our debt. Then they can get their 10% back. We can reduce our spending by eliminating all foreign aid. Now, I know that may not be popular with some folks, but it makes no sense to borrow from one and give to another, especially when you're in debt up to your eyeballs. How many of you think it would make sense if I asked every single one of you to go down to your bank, take out a $2,500 loan and come give it to me for my campaign? How many of you would jump in line to do that? I appreciate that, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and I wouldn't let you do that. I would not ask you to go into debt to do that. But that's what our federal government does. We borrow to give away. We have to reduce the national debt to restore the nation's creditworthiness and the strength of the American dollar. We have to reduce reliance on foreign oil to restore our energy independence and our national security. We have plenty of coal, we have plenty of oil, and we have plenty of natural gas. We just got to tap into it. We need to reduce and repeal stifling regulation. I think the point was made very clearly earlier how much regulation we have in this nation. We have to reduce, not just reduce, but repeal, get rid of. You hear the term regulation reform. Reform isn't what we need reduction. Start getting rid of some stuff. Instead of Congress passing laws, how about they take a year or two moratorium from passing any new laws, start looking what's on the books, and get rid of a bunch of stuff that we just don't need anymore. Because this regulation and this legislation, it's choking the life out of our business. It's killing our economy. And if we want to restore an environment for growth, and we want to restore to business owners the right to run their business the way they want to, then we got to do this. You should not be told how to run your own business. It's your business. You worked hard for what you have. We need to repeal all unconstitutional legislation. Obamacare needs to be gone immediately. to restore a constitutionally limited government, to restore individual rights. You should not be mandated or told you have to buy anything. And to restore states' rights. Congress must be confined to its constitutionally limited powers as outlined in Article 1, Section 8. And we must restore a government of the people, by the people, for the people. How do we do this? We the people get motivated. We the people get active. And we elect citizen legislators who will represent the people and rein in this runaway government. In short, we change Washington. Now, the issues we're facing as a nation, these aren't new issues. We've been here before. The problem is, this time, they're much more serious than they were in times past. Effecting the necessary changes in Washington is not going to be easy. But if we the people stick together, if we work together, we can make that difference. It's not going to happen overnight, but if we persevere, if we stay determined, if we stay patient, if we focus on the goal and the task at hand, then we will succeed. I believe in the American spirit. And I believe in the resolve of the American people to do the right thing, to do what is necessary to preserve our American heritage. If you're sick and tired of politics as usual, as I am, then I ask you, please, consider joining our team. Visit Jim and Laurie outside. Volunteer to help out on our campaign. Make a donation. Do both. But we need your help. We're here to make a difference and to work for you. And together, we can reduce, we can repeal, and we can restore this nation to the great nation it once was. I want to thank each of you for your time. I'll open up the floor for any questions. I'll do my best to answer any questions that you have. If I don't know the answer, then I'll simply let you know that I don't know the answer. None of us know everything, and I'm not one to pretend that I do. So.
Hi, Ted. You and I at some point in time had a discussion about illegal immigration, people coming over here, and what we can do to put a stop to it. It's a big problem. Mm-hmm. And you seem to have been unwilling to make the hard decision. You think it's what's impossible to motivate and use means necessary to get all these people to go back where they came from, get behind the line where they belong, not give them a pass, not give them in-state tuition, not give them a path to citizenship. It's unfortunate that their children came with them, and they put their children in a position to have their lives disrupted. The drug dealers' kids, they break a law, not unlike somebody entering our country illegally. Those kids are going to suffer as a result. We can't pick and choose what laws we're going to enforce and who's going to be affected by them. Mm-hmm. You know, how do you feel about real strict regulations applying to businesses that employ these illegal people, where the reason these people come over here to get jobs is eliminated? Mm-hmm. They continue to employ these people. They get stiff fines. The reason for them remaining here is eliminated, and they go back home on their own. A lot of them will do that, and other means necessary to put them back into the countries they belong and get back in line, so people coming into this country legitimately are able to. You told me one time I lack compassion on an email because of my standpoint on wanting them all to go back. Man, woman, child, or dogs. I don't care. I'm for Americans. I don't care about Mexican people that have entered our country illegally. I've been in the service. I had a Mexican guy fight beside me in the Army who I trust with my life. I got nothing against Mexican people. I do, however, have a big problem with people coming into our country illegally.
Well, I think, respectfully, I think you may have misinterpreted what I was saying, but, and that's fine. Those things happen. People do get misinterpreted. And, you know, if you hear or see anything that I say and you think, wait a minute, that don't sound right, I have cards and I have palm cards and business cards that have a phone number on there. And if you call that number, this phone here will ring. You're not going to get somebody from an office. You're going to get me. And so I want to encourage you, if you hear something that you say, that just ain't right, call me and ask me. And I appreciate you asking me this. Being a police officer, I believe in the rule of law. And they're here illegally. It's wrong. It's against the law. So I think the point that I might have been making was, if you take, and it's estimated 20 million illegal immigrants in our nation right now. If you try to simply deport all 20 million, it'd be next to impossible to just focus on deporting them. If, let's say we had INS working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they were able to deport 1,000 people a day, 365 days a year. That's 365,000 people a year. 20 million people would take 50 years. So I would encourage, in addition to every time you come up with somebody, you deport them, is just what you were talking about, was going after the businesses, taking away the magnets. If a business is employing somebody who is illegal, they should be fined, absolutely. And that person who's working here illegally should be deported, absolutely. If businesses fail to use card check to make sure, then sure, they fine them. Now, I know this is kind of contrary to what I'm talking about as far as freedom of businesses, but at the same time, when we're employing illegal folks here in the United States, it's costing us money, it's costing us jobs. I was asked about H-1B visas and how they cost jobs, and I won't go into that. But illegal immigration is costing jobs, so I am not for amnesty in any way, shape, or form. I believe we need to enforce our laws. I believe we need to bring our troops home and secure that border. I think everybody agrees that we need to secure that border. We don't necessarily have to build a wall. We bring our troops home and put them down there. We can secure that border, no doubt about it. Well, I didn't know that, but I just kind of worked the numbers up, and it just didn't seem like it would work for me. But I think if we use both of those, deporting people, take away the magnets, anchor babies is a no-go. You can't sneak over the border and have a baby and then expect to have citizenship here. I don't believe in in-state tuition for illegals. I don't believe that our children who are citizens should have to pay more money for an education than someone who's here illegally. So no, I'm not for amnesty. I do think we need to strictly enforce those laws. Those people, our ancestors, every one of us, you know, unless you're American Indian, you're a product of immigration. They did it the right way. These people have to do it the right way. I tell my daughter all the time, whatever you do, you're held accountable for your actions. We need to hold these people accountable for their actions. So if there was a misinterpretation, I apologize, but no, I'm not for amnesty in any way, shape, or form.
With all the talk and all the knowledge we have of what's going on, I think the basic place to start, that everyone, everywhere, get down on their knees and cry out to God for a revival like this country has never seen, and that will start the process of reviving our country.
I agree. I agree. Now, I don't know if I got this verbatim, but there is a verse in the Bible that says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves, seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, I will hear them from heaven and I will heal their land. So that's on every single one of us. Have to take part in that.
What's your policy on term limits? And how about we eliminate the pensions for congressmen and senators? Why the hell should a congressman get $35,000 a year for serving a couple of years? And where a kid comes back from Afghanistan by the way, who has a couple of arms missing, only gets about $36,000 a year. You aware of that?
Yes. My brother's actually a 17-year veteran in the U.S. Army. He's been over to Iraq, and he's had some issues as a result of that. So I'm pretty familiar with what they go through. As far as term limits, I believe in term limits. I believe that we do not need career politicians. We do not need people to go to Washington and spend their lives there. As far as what number there, if you use what Congressman Platts has used, 2 terms for a senator equals 6 terms for a congressman, 12 years, is pretty fair, I think. I know being a police officer, it takes a year or 2 to get your feet wet and to kind of get the feel of things. So you got to give somebody at least 1 or 2 terms to kind of get the feel of things in Washington. And then you better start making some changes and then get out before you get indoctrinated and you get spoiled and corrupted. So I make you this promise, and I'll put it in writing. If I'm elected and reelected and reelected, I will honor a 12-year term limit voluntarily. Whether it's law or not, I will honor that. And I will not take a pension. I will not take any money from the federal government.
My mother came to this country 10 years before I was born. And I was in high school when she became a citizen and could vote in an election. We have people coming into this country who have no understanding of the responsibilities of freedom and liberty, no understanding of how freedom works, and we're giving them almost immediate citizenship, sometimes by stroke of a pen, whole groups of people with no idea of what the duties of citizenship imply in this country. And I think it's time we made some serious changes in that area.
I agree 100% with you, and there was actually something that I had in mind regarding that. And this is something in addition to the current immigration process, that when somebody's going through the process to become a legal citizen, they have to take citizenship classes. Well, they will be taught U.S. history. They will be taught what values and what principles and what morals our country was founded on. They will be taught things such as the electoral process and how it works. And they will be taught how to be Americans. And they will be taught English. Yes, English is the official language of the United States of America. Well, it's not, but I'm saying it needs it yeah.
Thank you. I'd like to second Larry very briefly here with reading from one of the principles of 912, which is the good principles is why I belong to this group. George Washington said in his first inaugural address, "The happy smiles of heaven can never be expected on a nation that disregards the eternal rules of order and right which heaven itself has ordained." That fits with what you said. And Psalm 127 says, "Unless God build the house," that means society, "the workers labor in vain," which means America fails. Okay? Amen. Now, this is a question for you, Ted. It's from principle number 7, 912 Patriots. Okay? I work hard for what I have, and I will share it with who I want to. Government cannot force me to be charitable. And of course, charity cannot be forced. I basically go along with the thought, but that first part does leave some questions. However, Glenn Beck is wise, and he has 2 parts to it. And again, he's quoting George Washington. That is, Beck quoting George Washington on charity. And this is the answer that I'm going for, which you may not have prepared now, but in time will have a lot to do with social justice, which has become a bad word because of the way leftist people's treat it, okay? So here's George Washington. "It is not everyone who asketh that deserveth charity. All, however, are worth of the inquiry, or the deserving may suffer." Now, it's been broadly described that this election could be very ugly. I was never directly in the riots, but very close to them and met with some people. It could get very ugly in this country. So the cutting where the thing will happen is mostly in the nature of the cuts. So have you put together, or are you putting together your approach to dealing with cuts, in as much as you have the poor who deserveth and maybe some who don't? Thank you.
I have not put together a specific plan as far as where the cuts would be made, what percentages, things of that nature. But that is certainly something that I can put together and put on the website for everybody to see what I propose where the cuts should be. And I agree with what you had said, that everybody has equal opportunity. But the outcome, everybody shouldn't have equal outcome. We shouldn't guarantee, it's not guaranteed that you're going to have the same as the next guy. But everybody should have that same equal opportunity.
DOMA, you raised it in my mind when you spoke, quote, the Declaration of Independence. Now, the words preceding created equal and so on is, we hold that these are self-evident rights. Mm-hmm. Now, it isn't self-evident that you can redefine marriage. It's not, so that can't be a truth, okay? And I'm not hearing anyone making this argument. And on homosexual marriages and so on, that is not self-evident either. So you can use the wording of the Declaration to oppose knocking out marriage, traditional marriage, and supporting even the adoption of children, for example, who Jesus said, who leads these little ones astray, may be better that a millstone be hung around his neck. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Ted, are you familiar with H.R. 1848? It's also the 1% Spending Reduction Act of 2011. It was submitted to the House in May of this year, still sitting in committee. There are 67 co-sponsors, and none of them are from Pennsylvania.
I'm not familiar with that bill. What's H.R.?
H.R. 1848.
1848.
Now, I kind of read the bill, but it's only a couple of pages long. Maybe that's a problem with it. It's not tricky enough. But it looks like you had mentioned about cutting the federal government or the congressman's 10%. I've worked in and around government buildings and so forth for a lot of years, and I promise you that not only could you cut everybody's salary by 10%, you could cut the number of workers by 10%, and you wouldn't lose a nickel in efficiency. The other thing I have to ask you is, along with this fiscal responsibility, are you familiar with the Heritage Foundation?
Yes, sir.
And their training programs for new candidates and such?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep. You brought up a good point when you talked about the number of people working in Washington. Another item that I was going to be attacking was congressional staff. Congressman Platts last year spent over $880,000 on staff. $880,000 for one person to me seems a bit ridiculous. So that would be definitely somewhere that I would be looking to push to reduce congressional salaries, and would certainly do it myself. Instead of having 3 offices in the area, it seems to me it might make a little more sense, especially in this day and age, have one centralized office that anybody can go to or reach within a short period of time. But that was a good point. The staff is just ridiculous, and that does need to be reduced. And I will look into 1848. Yes, 1848. Yes.
Actually, I just have a comment and a question. The comment is that for myself, I guess I've just gotten so tired of our public officials not having any integrity, not standing behind their word. I mean, I think it's great you have a good work ethic, but I guess if you can convey to us that you can be trusted in some way, shape, or form, I mean, that would be something I'll be looking for. And how your integrity stood the test, during your past work experience and, with the police office or whatever. Also, given the current selection of Republican candidates for president, who would you support?
All right, well, the integrity portion. When I graduated the police academy. I was selected from among my peers to give the speech at the graduation ceremony. And there are 3 values for the Baltimore County Police Department: integrity, fairness, and service. The first being integrity. And one of the things that I talked about was that's the most important of the 3. Because once you lose your integrity, it's gone. So integrity is very important to me. As far as my work experience, the fact that I've worked very hard as a police officer. I've never been in a position where somebody has bribed me or anything like that I could point to a specific incident. But I have worked very hard in my position as the HOA president. It's a volunteer position. I have access to that money at the bank. But we hold each other accountable, and we hold each other to where if anybody has any expenses, we all know about it to preserve that integrity. The Republican candidate, there's a few of them I like. And I'm not endorsing anybody at this point. I'm not telling you who to vote for, but I like Herman Cain for various reasons. He's my number one. Should something catastrophic happen, boy, it's really tough because the rest of them, Newt says a lot of very good things, Newt Gingrich, and he knows how things work in Washington. Those 2 really are the 2 for me. If we had a Cain-Gingrich ticket, I'd be very happy.
Okay, we have time for 2 more questions, so here's one.
Will you be home every night?
I'll answer that question by saying this. I'm going to do whatever it takes to make changes in Washington to, 1, create a pro-growth environment for businesses in our country, 2, reduce the regulation, reduce the legislation, and restore American freedoms, business freedoms. If that means spending the night in Washington, yes, I'll be spending the night in Washington. I will. I will not go to a $500 hotel. Funny story, I'll tell you guys this, and I told my wife never to let me do this again because it wasn't very fun. But for the police department, we have what's called short changeover. You work 3 to 11 2 weeks, they work 2 weeks. And the changeover day was Sunday. So you'd work Sunday evening 3 to 11. And then you're expected to be back in Monday morning at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning, whichever time your shift started. Living an hour away from Baltimore, if I get off at 11 o'clock at night and I was shift commander the next day, I had to be in by 5:30 that morning. So I'd get home around 12. I'd have to get up in about 3 hours to get down there in time. So I would sleep in my car down by the precinct, so I'd get a few hours. So I have no problem sleeping on a couch in a plush office, and I'm sure these couches are probably better than most beds that people have. So yeah, I'll be sleeping on a couch.
Okay, last question here.
Short question. Could you tell us what your position is on the Second Amendment?
I am pro-gun rights. There's a website, maybe some of you know it. It's called Oath Keepers. And as a police officer, I took an oath of office to defend the Constitution. And in that Constitution is the Second Amendment. And I will not take anybody's gun away from them at any point in time. I believe we all have a right to arms. So I am for the Second Amendment, absolutely. Under all circumstances. I'm being told that's it, so I'm going to thank everybody. I will hang out as long as necessary outside, answer any questions that anybody has. Please take the time, stop by our table, talk to Jim, talk to Laurie, pick up some bumper stickers, some palm cards, pass them out, tell all your friends. I appreciate it. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you, Ted. We have one more person to speak tonight, and that's Jake Coy. He's a candidate for the district in West Manchester. Is Jake here? I just talked to him. Hold on a sec. Is Jake out there? He won both his football games. I think he's here. Maybe he took off. I don't know. Anyway, Ted will be here. Oh, Jake's coming in right now. If you can just take 1 or 2 more minutes of your time. Jake wants to introduce himself and explain why he is running for district justice. Jake.
you doing? Sorry about the attire. I just got done coaching 2 football games for West York Middle School. They won both games. 7th and 8th graders both won. I'm running for district judge for West Manchester Township. My son wanted to come along and get everybody's autograph here because he's a Patriots fan, but I told him that there weren't going to be any football players. He was a little disappointed, but so he didn't come along. But other than that, if you get a chance, vote for me. I'll be at the polls, and if anyone has nothing to do on Tuesday and wants to help out, that'd be great too. But I know you guys all want to get out of here, so I'm going to let you go. Thank you very much.
All right, well, that's it. Thank you, everybody, for attending. If you can help the York Suburban guys out at their polls on Tuesday, please let me know. Betty Smith signed their sheet, but she did not put any kind of contact information on. So we are not clairvoyant, and we do not have ESP. So Betty, if you have your information, we'd love to help you out, help them out. Thank you very much, and have a safe trip home.